New week. Happy Thanksgiving week, folks. I have no idea what the podcast schedule is going to be this week, but we're giving you one on Monday, November 21st. Jack, Aram, Just Baseball Show. We're going to talk about the non-tendered guys. Really riveting stuff in late November. We're also going to hit some buzzwords in free agency that I think are objectively funny as hell. And we'll see if you guys agree they are that funny. But there is something not baseball related that I want to hit off the top. But first and foremost, how's Florida? It's 20 degrees in Indy.
Dude, honestly, rained every second of the day today. It was nice the first couple days, but got the thunderstorms rocking, so did not get off the couch. Just watch football while I wrote up the best Bowman prospects to hunt in 2022 Bowman Chrome. So for my card collectors out there, look out for that on the website. But yeah, it's rainy season right now.
Who did you send me? You sent me Kevin Maitan, Yasel Antuna.
Yeah, that was unrelated. That was unrelated. I was sending you the funniest one of ones I could find, and I did find Kevin Maitan, Yasel Antuna, all those guys, multi-million-dollar international free agents, and their cards you could probably buy for about $4 now.
Yeah, so our friends at eBay, of course, have all these one of ones, and Yasel Antuna, $3,500 for his one of one. There's like a zero,
which is crazy. I wouldn't buy it for 15.
Yeah, I mean, there's a 0% chance he makes the big leagues, right?
I would say 0, which is really sad. How much did he sign for? $5 million?
I think so. It was more than
3.9 million. 3.9 million.
Kevin Maitan for $4 million. Kevin Maitan was a dude for a minute.
Shows you how tough international free agency can be. And it's crazy because a lot of the non-tender guys, or at least some of them, are, like former top prospect type of guys, international free agent type of guys, where it's like, do you take a chance on them? But I would say, like, in this instance, a lot of the players that we're looking at right now are probably more talented than our typical non-tender deadline. I don't know if it's a little bit of recency bias, but it just feels like this is a very riveting, like, not even sarcastic, like, this is an exciting group of non-tendered players that are going to be just hitting free agency. And maybe we should explain it for those who might not totally understand how the non-tender deadline works.
Yeah. So, and before we actually explain it, I will say the guys that are non-tendered I'm kind of half explaining it right now, but the guys that are non-tendered are bottom of the barrel on the major league roster. Like, you don't want them on the team next year. That's how non-tendered works. Generally speaking. So the way non-tendered works is, obviously you've got guys that have agreed to free agent deals. They're on the team through the duration of the deal, else you're going to cut ties a la Jason Hayward, where you're still going to be on the hook for $22 million.
Yeah.
Pre-free agency, when you're going through the pre-arb or the arbitration process, you don't hit that. You have the option to tender a contract to anybody. So any pre-arb player on your 40-man roster will make the league minimum, which is going to be $700K, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So here we are, like, any guy that's pre-arbitration is going to make $700K if you tender a contract to them. If you tender a contract to a guy in arbitration, then that means you enter the arbitration hearing, and you have to have that dialogue. You have to agree to a 1-year deal, or you have an arbiter decide your value. I'm sure a lot of you understand, like, how arbitration actually works in a vacuum. You and your agent throw out a number that you think you're worth. The team throws out a number that they think you're worth. And then you either meet in the middle, or you go to an arbiter who sides with one of those two sides.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, if neither thing happens, pre-arb or an arbitration, if you don't want to pay a pre-arb guy $700,000, or if you don't want to go through arbitration, you have the right to not tender them a contract. If a guy is non-tendered, that means that he was not extended an offer for arbitration or the league minimum, and he enters free agency.
And the important part is, when you're going through maybe year 2, year 3 of arbitration, guys that have played well in the past, they're more expensive. And even if you have a great year and you really get that arbitration value up, which is never going to be totally up to par usually with how good a player is, no matter how bad you are the subsequent year, you're still going to gain at least some sort of amount from that base pay that you had the year before. So an example would be Cody Bellinger. He doesn't get tendered. We'll talk about him as an option, but just using him in this instance, he won the MVP. So when he went to arbitration, his value was so much higher. And now that he's struggling, there was just no way that the Dodgers could justify paying him $18 million, which is, what after the baseline value that they set for him, through arbitration in years prior. Now that he's been so bad, you just can't give him that deal. Most of the time, though, an MVP 3 years later is still an MVP caliber player. So this is a rare instance. I don't even know when else we could ever really. I don't know if there's ever been another instance where an MVP is eventually non-tendered before they hit free agency. So it is one of those rare situations. Usually it's more about the roster spot, and teams really have to figure out whether it's worth the roster spot or it's a guy that's right on the brink, like a Brian Anderson with the Marlins, where it's a cheaper team. $5 million is more notable to them. Brian Anderson is worth the roster spot at the league minimum, but for $5 million, probably maybe not for them. So, right. That's just another little bit of background, I guess, on what goes into these decisions. Cause you'll notice that there's some decent players in this list, and there's some decent players that should be available.
Yeah. So you got a guy like Bellinger who might make 10 this coming year. And then you've got a guy like Ben DeLuzio with the Cardinals, who was going to make $700K. He's a pre-arb guy, but the roster spot just didn't make sense for the Cardinals to keep DeLuzio. They have other outfielders that they want on the 40-man, so they did not tender him a contract. We will get to the non-tendered list, but first, my non-baseball thing. I understand that this is a common thought, but I derive a lot of enjoyment from watching Zach Wilson struggle for the Jets.
I don't know why.
He's the kind of guy that I feel like would ask Santa for shutter shades for Christmas. You know what I mean? Like wear the Steph Curry jersey and the Elite socks and the slides with the foam bottoms.
He does look like that.
And then how about post game when, somebody asked, do you feel like you let your defense down? They only allowed 3 points. And he answered, no, I don't feel that way. Like this guy, I just don't like him. I don't like watching him play football. And
what's the MLB
comp? That game.
What's the MLB comp?
It's not Donaldson. I know we want to comp people we don't.
Donaldson's too good.
Yeah. What is the MLB comp? Is there any crazy, cocky, confident dude that just is not good that's young?
That's a great question. I don't think so. Baseball's too humbling, man. You just can't get away with it. It's just impossible. I mean, maybe I'm sure someone listening, if you're listening to this, well, obviously you'd be hearing me right now. Yeah. Whoever's listening to this, if someone comes to your mind, tweet at us, tweet at me or Jack and give us some names.
MLB comp for Zach Wilson.
Yeah. MLB comp for Zach Wilson, attitude wise and performance wise, but we want that blended in, not just crappy player that's young and not meeting expectations. No, I want the personality side too. I want that in there too.
I want talk the talk, but doesn't walk the walk.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think. I can't think of an example of that again, because baseball is just too humbling. If anybody's going to be a pitcher that can maybe get away with that a little bit more, and that would be the one, but not that I can think of right now. It could have been Karinchak. It could have been Karinchak if he didn't bounce back the way he did this year, which is another guy I know you don't mind watching give up nukes every once in a while. So I would say that's the best comparison, but he was nails this year. So I don't know. We'd have to wait and see what tweets we get on that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So that was just my quick thought here. There are a couple other things that I want to address before we get to the non-tendered list. It's free agency verbiage, which is just the weirdest thing ever. There were a couple of great buzzwords, and I want to start with the Mariners have, quote, checked in on Trey Turner, according to Jim Bowden. What does checked in mean?
Well, so have I. I checked in as well.
Yeah, I went to his baseball reference. Does that kind of check?
Exactly. I checked in as well. Yeah, it's funny because it's kind of shields them from, if you're the more specific you are, the more likely it is that your report can be refuted. So if you just say checked in and they say, oh no, we haven't done much, whatever, but you could literally say, oh yeah, but according to my source, you guys mentioned that you might reach out to his agent, or you might check in. It's that's it, checked in. That's a classic one. Another
one, showing interest. According to John Morosi, the Giants are showing interest in Kenley Jansen.
That's an even crazier one, because showing interest is even more ambiguous and checked in. Again, you have to at least check in. Showing interest could literally be hey, we're kind of interested in this could mean literally nothing.
Yeah, talking to Gabe Kapler at the Starbucks while he's on Zoom with Farhan Zaidi, like, hey, what do you think of Aaron Judge? Oh, yeah, great player. Does that mean that the Giants are showing interest in Aaron Judge?
Yeah, I would say, technically speaking, they're showing interest. That's the crazy thing is I could tweet those buzzwords like Giants showing interest in Aaron Judge, and like I can't be told I'm wrong for that. And like obviously I'll get clowned for that because it's like such a big scoop that obviously one of the bigger guys would have it. But like it's funny how you can just do that. And I do feel like certain guys, I don't want to say a specific name, but certain guys just do that like every once in a while, either recycle the same kind of like update or just use those generalities to just have something that like kind of keeps their reporting prevalent, if that makes sense.
Does it not do dumb numbers?
Just because people are so desperate for crumbs. It does dumb numbers because people are so desperate for crumbs. So it's like, they're showing even more interest now or whatever it is. Like you'll see how certain writers do it. If you're listening, like now you'll be more like pay attention to it a little bit more. How many times do you see the same report or the same thing rephrased in different ways and then a link to a story on it that is exactly the same as you read it the first time and the second time?
Yeah. So how about top priority? That's another buzzword here. Jose Abreu, apparently a top priority for the Padres, according to JP Morosi.
That one's a little better. Morosi, that's funny timing. Yeah. I mean, it's a little better if he is indeed a top priority, I guess, right? Like that's a little bit better because that tells you that that's one of the main guys they wanted. But also who reported that Rizzo was a top priority for the Astros and they signed with the Yankees the next day. Like maybe he was a top priority, but again, how feasible is the signing? Otherwise, I don't really care.
Yeah, how about spoken with? Ken Rosenthal, like Ken Rosenthal is the word of God. The Mets have spoken with Justin Verlander, according to Ken Rosenthal. I believe that. I believe
that holds some value. I think that holds maybe the most value. I mean, they talked to him. They didn't ask him, how his weekend was, I'd assume. The spoken with is good.
Yeah, fair. How about Asdrubal Cabrera throwing a haymaker in the Venezuelan Winter League? That was electric. That has nothing to do with free agency, but that just came across again.
Well, I mean, if he did want to try to make a comeback, I don't know if that helps much. Yeah, that was something, right? He pimped the home run, like.
So apparently it was this dude's. I don't know who hit it. It was his third homer of the game, and obviously he was juiced up. The pitcher started barking at him on his way to first, and as this guy rounds first, Asdrubal Cabrera comes out of nowhere, tries a haymaker. Problem is, he hits him with his forearm. It's not even a fist. He goes down because obviously a professional athlete and a 15-year vet like Asdrubal Cabrera is going to have good forearms. And, a swing of that club is going to be good regardless of, where exactly it impacts you. But I thought that was weird. He had the opportunity to blindside hit the shit out of somebody, and he didn't even connect the fist. He went forearm.
Yeah, it was a weird one. Also, like, why are you so rattled? It's the Winter League, and he pimped a home run. Like, get over it. It's okay. The crowds there are electric.
Yeah,
the crowds are electric. Like that. That's why I'm surprised. You saw the home run by Joran Encarnacion, where like it was a walk-off, and he was still in the batter's box getting mobbed before he even jogged around the bases. Like the environment, the crowd is so into it. I was digging through some video late last night, looking at Ellie De La Cruz out there, the Reds prospect. And I was just like, man, this environment is so freaking cool. It's on the top of my bucket list. But if you get some fights in there too, I mean, this is must see TV. Like this is something that we're going to make our way out there next year. But yeah, sucker punch rounding first. Could you imagine if that happened in our league, in Major League Baseball? I mean, that's what, 25, 40 games? 40 games? I have no idea.
Maybe it would be on.
You'll have some old white writers just throwing up in the press box just because this is not the game that they grew up watching.
Yeah. Bruce Levine in Chicago leaves crying, feeling disrespected by the game of baseball.
I'll never forget the Niger Morgan, charging the mound, gets leveled by Gabby Sanchez, and my boys Rich Waltz and Tommy Hutton on the call crushed it. Just crushed it. It was awesome. It was awesome. Like you got to have fun with it. You got to have fun with it, and
gotta
just
go boxing mode.
Yeah, you have to. Not just like this is disgusting. Like, well, yeah, I guess, but if everyone's all right, like let's have some fun.
Come on, yeah. Like my thing is, So the way Dallin Cuff put it, Dallin Cuff is a basketball analyst on ESPN. This was Chris Beard's return to Lubbock, Texas last year. It was a crazy, crazy environment because they hate Chris Beard. Chris Beard took Texas Tech to the national title in men's college hoops. He jumps to go to Texas, which is why it's like Alex Cora going to manage the Yankees pretty much. And Chris Beard's return to Lubbock, return to Texas Tech, it's like this. The Texas Tech fan base is just spewing vitriol at Chris Beard for the first 20 minutes. At halftime, Dallin Cuff says, "This is awesome. Like, there needs to be more hate in college basketball.
There needs to be more hate.
I think we need more like Bumgarner and Muncie, like go get it out of the fucking ocean, or Harper, Strickland. Like, we need more shit like that, man."
I'm here for it.
Before we get to the last buzzword here, Ellie De La Cruz, is he Barry Bonds meets Ricky Henderson meets Nolan Ryan? What's the deal?
He looks like it right now, man. I mean, he's just running all over the base paths however he wants, leading the league in stolen bases, walking a ton. That's an impossible league to hit in offensively, and he's putting up good numbers. He's just crazy. I think he's game changer type of athlete. Everything that we like about O'Neal Cruz, I think, put a more fluid athlete. He could take the league by storm next year if he gets a chance, which is I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this guy can do. What I'm seeing in the Winter League is just solidifying it even further. I think he's going to make a mockery of AAA next year, and then potentially take the league by storm if he can cut down a little bit on the chase.
So the way you have your top 100 structured right now, it's Carroll 1, Gunnar Henderson 2, G-Rod 3, Ellie De La Cruz 4. Carroll and Gunnar will be on the opening day roster for the Diamondbacks and the Orioles, respectively. Grayson Rodriguez, maybe a start in AAA. Like, he should crack the opening day rotation with Baltimore. So as it's structured right now, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that Ellie De La Cruz becomes the top prospect in all of baseball. No?
Yeah, just about. Unless Jordan Walker has something to say about it. He really floored me in the fall league. So I would say it's very likely Ellie De La Cruz, but Jordan Walker's hard to deny. It's hard to rule that guy out, But when we talk about dynamic, just ability in the ceiling, it's got to be Ellie. But it's not like Jordan Walker is some normal size guy like Corbin Carroll, right? He's 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah,
moves. So it's pretty fun. I'm looking forward to losing sleep over him versus Ellie when the other guys are graduated.
Yeah, I understand. Last one before we get to the non-tendered guys. The Mets believe Jacob deGrom prefers to stay if contract offers are similar elsewhere. What does that mean?
That's bullshit. That's something I could report. That's something I absolutely could report. Like, that's such bullshit. Oh, the Mets believe. So first, you're not even saying that like anybody said anything. You're saying that the team that is hoping to retain the best pitcher in baseball when healthy is assuming that the player that they drafted and took a chance on and helped develop and, as a converted infielder and have had him play his entire career with them, you're saying that they think that he wants to possibly stay there more than go anywhere else if the money was the same. Wow. Thank you for that report.
Here's the other thing. I understand, like, you can't outsource this. Like, it's never going to happen. But when you say Mets believe Jacob deGrom prefers to stay,
Mr. Met?
I was going to say, like, ticket office intern or like something like that, right?
But even if they do, even if it's Steve Cohen, noted Mets fan, like, of course he believes and hopes that.
Oh, he'll stay. Yeah, the optimistic Mets people.
The Braves thought that Freeman preferred to stay in Atlanta, right? And he probably did. But money talks.
Judging on the language and the tears at the press conference, it feels like he did prefer to stay in Atlanta.
He did very much, but money talks.
Money talks. All right, we're going to go to the non-tendered guys here, and we're going to roll through the list alphabetically by team. Pipeline did a great job, or it's not even Pipeline, it's MLB.com. MLB.com did a great job, organizing this alphabetically by team. The way non-tendered works, like we just explained, there are guys whose name have zero impact here that you're going to be like, who is this? And then there are guys that make you pause. So we're going to fly through the guys that, minor league free agent deal. And when there are guys that could actually help a Major League Baseball team in 2023, we're going to stop and stick on them for a little bit. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that, in case it just like came off unclear, I'm fairly positive that you can only non-tender somebody in arbitration. So if it's pre-arb, it's you just go, right? Like if it's pre-arb, it's league minimum. There's no decision on whether to tender a contract, I'm pretty sure. But if they're arbitration eligible, then that's where you have the decision of whether you want to, tender them a contract and then go into those negotiations. And then eventually you have until January 13th, once you tender a contract, to, work something out, or you go to arbitration.
Are you sure about that? I think you can non-tender pre-arb guys. Like there are pre-arb guys on this list.
Are there really?
Yeah. And like, why is Braylon Marquez on this list? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, dude, baseball rules are so weird.
They're weird. We should know them, but they're really weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you can non-tender pre-arb guys because I think Marquez was a 40-man guy. It's anybody on your 40-man that has not agreed to a contract in 2023. You have the right to tender a pre-arb deal, which is the league minimum, or you can tender an arbitration deal, which, then is its own can of worms.
That is insane.
So, do you understand bird rights like that in the NBA?
Oh, no. We're not going into that. Absolutely not fucking going into that.
I don't get bird rights and stipend rule and anything like that. So I do want to understand those. I will make a concerted effort to understand those for next year when we talk about guys that are non-tendered and things like that. Fair?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Let's start with Anaheim. Lefty Jonathan Diaz, Touki Toussaint, Nash Walker, a right-handed pitcher, and Rob Zasterney, a lefty. Those were the four guys that were non-tendered. Obviously, the name recognition here is with Touki Toussaint. Parts of 5 big league seasons. Touki in 2022, 8 appearances, 6 coming out of the bullpen, 25 and a third innings, 26 punch-outs, but he had a 4.6 ERA and he walked 19 guys in 25 innings. Touki was a late bloomer, right? He was like very, very raw first round pick by Arizona in 2014. He was 97 with this crazy Snapdragon curveball, and it just never panned out.
I faced him in 2014.
Did you?
He was he was disgusting. He came and pitched at our high school, and obviously there was like 30 scouts there or more. He was on 35, 40 pitch count. We actually got to him because he wasn't locating the breaking ball, and we were just cheating for the fastball. And our 8 hitter just stuck the bat out inside out down the first base line and got him out of there like 35 pitches. But I'll tell you what, when we saw him that day, we were like, man, he's going to figure it out. This guy's going to be a problem. Like I would have bet my life on him being a first round pick and beyond that, being a good baseball player. And, he's racked up a decent amount of service time at this point, but obviously far from, what we thought he would be and could be when he was drafted in the first round there. I'm still I refuse to fully give up on this guy. He's got like the perfect pitcher's body. He's 26 years old. The velo has been inconsistent, but he sits still 93, 94. He's trying to figure out what works better, the sinker or the four-seamer. He also has a splitter and a curve. I think he's just got to figure out what he can command the best. And that's really just been the issue for him, is he just can't throw strikes. And ultimately that could do him in, but I just think he's too athletic and too talented at 26 years old. You got to give him another year or two to try to work it out. I could see a team that with a good track record of developing arms, giving him a chance.
I believe he's a 40-man arm that might agree to a minor league free agent deal, but certain incentives if he does crack the big league roster. You're right. He gets in the right situation. He finds the right pitch mix, and he develops just this teensy amount of confidence that can snowball with how good the stuff is. I do think that he is a major league reliever at some point in the next couple of years. I do. I don't think Touki Toussaint's career is over by any stretch.
No, not at all.
Josh James was the only guy non-tendered by the Astros, right-hander at a 7 ERA in 28 appearances in AAA. He didn't appear in the majors in 2022. I don't know anything.
Another South Florida guy who's like a 34th round pick. He's got nasty stuff. He'll land somewhere as a potential reliever for somebody. That's another guy that'll get picked up.
Oakland, Deolis Guerra, Jared Koenig, David McKinnon. Guerra is a righty. Koenig is a lefty. David McKinnon, obviously the one that looked like, we have Thor at home. Thor at home is David McKinnon. Any of these guys have intrigue for you?
No. Not really. I mean, the McKinnon will land somewhere else and be a quadruple A guy. I'm not really. I don't think any of those guys are notable compared to some of the other names.
He might need a reunion with the Angels. He might need to be a Salt Lake B in 2023.
Yeah.
All right, Toronto. Vinny Capra, an infielder. Not much on Vinny Capra, but how about the two outfielders? Raimel Tapia and Bradley Zimmer. Tapia was one of the headliners of guys that were non-tendered. Tapia can help a big league team, not as an everyday guy, not as a platoon guy. I think Raimel Tapia can absolutely be a fourth outfielder, speed and defense. And hey, if you need a ball on the ground, he's your guy.
Oh, whenever you need that 6-4-3 double play, you got your guy waiting. But no, I mean, he's again another guy that's too talented. He's been around too long at the big league level to not get another look. But again, better options that we'll get to.
Yeah. So slash 265, 292, 380. Other one is Bradley Zimmer, who is just downright terrible over the last couple of years. Zimmer, let's see, this year, 109 games. Can you even guess what he slashed? This is incredible.
I think he had like a sub 500 OPS, right?
Yeah.
480?
No.
What was it?
He had a 435 OPS.
Jesus.
109 games. He slashed 124, 207, 229.
Guess what? He's going to land somewhere.
Because he's 6'4", 185 and built like an absolute freak show.
And plays all over. And yeah, someone will take a chance. What if he figures it out? Yeah.
Hitting 124 over 109
I'm telling
games.
I'm telling you. There's much better options, which we'll get to. But yes, I'm telling you. Which, by the way, there's an article on justbaseball.com. We'll have it linked in the podcast description that our guy Clay Snowden put together of like the best non-tender or the best players that were not tendered, that can be picked up now in free agency. There's a lot of really good ones. We'll get to them. A lot of the names that we'll talk about here. But if you want to read a little bit more on these guys, Clay Snowden did a great job on that article for justbaseball.com.
Yep. Braves, Silvino Bracho, a right-hander. Guillermo Heredia is an interesting outfielder thrown into the 1-year free agent fold. Alan Rangel, a right-hander. Jackson Stevens, a right-hander, and another right-hander, Brooks Wilson. Heredia is the only name that jumps out to me. Like, yeah, this is a quadruple A guy now.
Yeah. He's a quadruple A guy.
That's about it. Brewers, Trevor Gott, Yandel Gustav, and Luis Perdomo, 3 right-handed pitchers.
Yeah, nothing.
Cardinals. Let's start with DeLuzio, and then we'll get to Alex Reyes. Ben DeLuzio can flat out fly, and he got a very, very brief cameo up with the big club in 2022. Mm-hmm. For the most part, he was in Memphis. He's a really good contingency plan waiting in AAA, I think. I don't know if he can hit enough. He's not going to impact the ball enough, but this guy is as fast as they possibly come. And I don't know, he's worth, I don't know, a 40-man spot, but he's worth like being in an organization.
I think he could be worth the 40-man spot. Like that speedy fourth outfielder, late game pinch runner type of guy. Especially with the extra innings rule that we have now and in the regular season where, you can pinch run a guy and throw him on second base. I think that there's a value to a Ben DeLuzio. And I still think that his bat can get there. And by get there, I just mean be good enough to be a fourth outfielder, which is like high 600s OPS. He's somebody that's super tooled up. And I think if he was in a different org, we probably would have seen him retained. But you look at the outfield situation, not only currently, but also through the minor leagues as well for the St. Louis Cardinals organization. And, they don't need a Ben DeLuzio and they didn't have room on the 40-man roster for him, but he'll be, I think, fairly coveted. I think that'll be one of the more popular, underrated names in the minor league, free agent market.
I think so. And we're going to get to another guy that was non-tendered by a team in the NL Central in the outfield that it should be very highly coveted in the low or 0 days service time ranks.
Sorry to cut you off, by the way. I just want to hammer this again to make sure that we're not confusing people. You were absolutely right. I was able to dig it up in the meantime. So the difference is obviously the pre-arbitration players have no say in their forthcoming salary. And the reason why we rarely see pre-arbitration players, get non-tendered, it's because obviously it's a pretty easy decision to tender a contract to a guy for the minimum. So they've got to really just be taking up space for you to non-tender them, or you have to feel like they're just not going to contribute anytime soon as they take up that 40-man spot. So just wanted to clarify that one more time. You were right initially, and you got it.
Let's go. Alex Reyes is absolutely worth a roster spot. He has accrued 5 years of service time. So he is a third-year arbitration eligible guy. So he falls into the Bellinger bucket where, yes, he's absolutely worth the roster spot. Is he worth the $7 million that he was going to get or the $6 million that he was going to get? And the answer for the Cardinals is no. The answer around baseball is probably no. This guy has been hurt time and time again. He didn't throw it all in 2022, but in 2021, he was an all-star. And we saw what a 4, maybe 5 pitch mix out of the bullpen and a closer role can do. And it can net you an all-star appearance, and you can be coveted as one of the most disgusting relievers in the game. That's what the Cardinals do. Alex Reyes has always had the stuff. The question has always been, how many times is he going to toe the rubber for your team in a given year? You have no idea if this guy's going to stay healthy. Sandy Alcantara, former organization mate, tweeted, "We need Alex Reyes in Miami," something like that. I would love to see Alex Reyes as a Miami Marlin.
Oh, I mean, it would be the perfect fit. I mean, the Marlins need a stuff guy in the bullpen. He would be their closer if healthy pretty much immediately. I believe there's a tie, whether there's a brother of somebody who's the agent of Sandy. Like there's a tie to Alex Reyes, which is why he tweeted that. Reyes, I mean, his story we could spend a lot of time on alone. Ironically, when Sandy Alcantara was traded to the Marlins, Reyes was an untouchable. When Ozuna was traded over to the Cardinals, I mean, Reyes was a top starting pitching prospect in baseball, one of the top for a while. Health issues continue to hold him back, and that's why he moved to the bullpen, where he was phenomenal. Command issues a little bit as well. And, we saw what he can do out of the bullpen. I do have concerns that the injuries are fairly severe, and I think that's why the Cardinals also were a little bit more willing to let him go. I think they feel as though these injuries are not going to get better anytime soon, and that he would probably be out for the majority of the season. And this is a team that we're kind of expecting to spend this offseason. It seems like they're going to make some moves there. So you want to try to save a penny or two when you can. But for some other teams out there, it's a no-brainer to take a chance here on an Alex Reyes, especially if you're a smaller market team that, can't afford the elite relievers. We've seen what the market price is now. We talked about that in previous episodes, Jack. Like, this is your chance to kind of fall into a elite closer opportunity here for very cheap if he can get right physically.
So the way this works is they become free agents. So that doesn't just mean that they have to sign a 1-year deal. This means that Alex Reyes could sign a 2 or 3 year contract with a team.
I can promise his contract will be heavily incentivized.
But he's one of the few guys on this list that will probably sign a multi-year deal after being non-tendered.
Yeah, his will be interesting. I think with the injury concerns, I wonder. And I think what he signs to will be a little bit of a clue for us into what kind of how severe these injuries are with his shoulder. If he gets a 2-year deal, then there's a team out there that was encouraged by the medicals or encouraged by what they were able to see and hear from him.
I think it's a lock that we're going to get a vesting option of sorts that
absolutely
Carlos Rodon had.
It's going to be a creative contract for sure, which I'm very interested to see. I think it's whoever gives him, I think the safest baseline, because I'm sure this guy just wants to, make some money and support his family. And then who's willing to give him the most upside? Who's willing to reward him? If you hit 30 innings, 40 innings, 50 innings, how much are you going to give him in incentives? I think about Richard Sherman, when he was out for a while off the Achilles, and, there was a lot of teams that wanted him, but it was ultimately the Niners that were willing to give him a lot of escalators in that contract. And he hit the escalators and it worked out for him. So, I am very excited to see what the market looks like for him.
Yeah. The Cubs, they non-tender 3 guys, lefty Braylon Marquez, righty Alexander Vizcaíno, who came over with Kevin Alcantara, right, in the Rizzo deal.
And then never saw the field with the Cubs. Dealt with issues beyond the baseball field, and I don't think he ever really planned to pitch with the Cubs much. And it sounds like he wants to go back to New York. So some reports I was reading. So that's kind of crazy. Yeah, that would work. But yeah, he could really talented, but never really got a chance.
Yeah. And then Rafael Ortega, another guy that, outfielder, great, perfect. This guy, did make 5 starts with South Bend in 2021, 13 2/3 innings across 6 appearances at a 5.2 ERA. Like, we'll see what he does. Marquez is the interesting one with the Cubs. And Braylon Marquez was the Cubs' top pitching prospect for quite a while. Like electric fastball, like 100-mile-an-hour fastball from the left side.
Yeah.
What's
former top 100 prospect? He's a former top 100 prospect. He's 23.
Yeah.
I mean, his fastball from the left side is upper 90s, triple digits. He's touched 102. Nasty breaking ball. Command was a question. It still is. And health is a major question as well. But again, this is a guy we were talking about on the call up when we were going through the 40-man decisions that needed to be made with a lot of prospects, and how a lot of the underrated nasty lefty reliever prospects that were getting surprisingly protected that weren't on teams' top 30 lists. It's because everybody's looking for that lefty bullpen piece that, those guys kind of emerge out of nowhere. And I can already see in a year or two from now where Braylon Marquez is coming out of the bullpen for whatever team, and we're saying, oh, wow, there he is. We always thought he could be nasty, and glad he figured it out, and it's very possible because this is arguably the most talented non-tendered arm. When you look at what he's able to do, 6'6" lefty, triple digits fastball, and a hammer for a breaking ball. I mean, he could be a lights out back end guy.
We'll see what happens. Diamondbacks non-tender 1, righty Reyes Maranta, who is a quadruple A reliever. He's 5'10", 265. Like, you want to see a unit, that's a fucking unit. So shout out Reyes Maranta for that build, because that build is not replicated by many. The elephant in the room was non-tendered by the Dodgers, but let's start with the 2 guys before him, Edwin Rios and Luke Williams. Edwin Rios, the arc for him is bizarre, and he's got a lot of talent. He does. The question is it going to click? And I think the Dodgers just said, no, it's not going to, at least for us.
This is another guy that I think a different organization, maybe they give him another year. He's so talented, as you mentioned, but he is already 28 years old. And what's crazy, though, is even at the big league level, when we get little snippets of Rios, he's pretty good. He played 27 games last year. And in those 27 games, a 793 OPS, he had 7 homers in 92 plate appearances. This is a guy that can help a lot of teams that are very starved for hitting. You look at some of the other, lesser offensive teams in baseball, and you could have plugged Rios into a lot of them last year, and I think he would help them. And I think he's somebody that's definitely going to have a lot of teams interested. Injuries really derailed things for him, because you look at what he did in 2019 in a brief cameo at the big league level. Then it's same thing in 2020, and a little bit more of a look at the big league level where he was fantastic. And then we were talking about him as one of those underrated candidates last year to potentially eat into some big time playing time with the Dodgers. And then injuries really, really hampered him. You look at the numbers through the minor leagues, he is always raked. This is a guy that if he gets the opportunity somewhere else and, he's just is able to stay on the field, I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up an above average offensive season. You
think so? You think like you could see a 730, 740 OPS season from him?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if he's healthy.
Does Luke Williams getting non-tendered count as a non-tender for the Marlins?
No, he got claimed by the Dodgers, so I guess it's a non-tender for both. And by the way, on Rios, sneaky 112 career games at this point, 291 career plate appearances across 4 years now at the big league level, 791 OPS.
Holy shit.
Yeah, platoon guy, I think, at the least.
I know he was great in, I think, 2018 was his first year.
2019,
he had like a 1,000 OPS.
Yeah, 1010 OPS and 56 plate appearances. Then the subsequent year only got 83 plate appearances and had a 946 OPS. So very limited, but the guy's mashed through the minors. And when he's gotten a chance at the big leagues, he's hit. It's just the Dodgers they've got too many other guys. Like, you're going to tell Vargas to wait. There's too many more talented young guys that they probably want to give those looks to.
Yeah. Folks, Cody Bellinger got non-tendered. The 2017 NL Rookie of the Year, 2019 NL MVP. His MVP season, this guy hit 305 with a 1035 OPS, 47 homers, 115 driven in. Since then, he has OPS'd 789 in 2020, 56 games. Okay, pretty solid from Bellinger. He was, really helpful for them in that World Series run in 2020. 2021, 95 games, the guy had a 542 OPS. Like, he was the worst hitter in baseball. Slashed 165, 240, 302. And then this year, played 144 games, slashed 210, 265, 389. 19 homers, 68 driven in. He struck out 150 times in 144 games. Bellinger will give you Gold Glove caliber defense. Cody Bellinger has won an MVP award in recent memory, like this presidential term, pretty much in a 4-year span. Bellinger is what, 26 years old, 27 years old?
Yeah, 27.
I mean, obviously he's going to provide value to a team that signs him. The question is he going to hit $170, or are you getting MVP Bellinger? Chances are somewhere in between. The big worry is that he's going to be closer to worst hitter in baseball than he is MVP.
It's just so wild. It's really hard for me to wrap my head around. I think it's hard for a lot of baseball fans and people who cover the game to really wrap their head around, right? A fall from grace, the way we've seen with Cody Bellinger, to go from MVP to non-tendered, as we talked about it. You just don't see that. You don't even really see MVP to below average player very often at all. The thing is what really makes Bellinger a no-brainer, is a no-brainer addition to just about any team that doesn't have a proven center fielder, is the defense, as you mentioned. And of course, what he has formerly done. It's really funny because, as we've just grown and especially as I've pushed out of the Marlins circles and, just have my feed more littered with people all across the game. I cannot tell you how many times I saw someone who covers X team saying Cody Bellinger would be a great, low risk, high reward pickup for, this team. Like, obviously, he's a former MVP. He's an elite defender in center field. Obviously, he's a great low risk, high reward pickup for just about any team in Major League Baseball. That's the crazy part, is Bellinger's going to have his choices, and the Dodgers are still one of them. I think the Dodgers will offer him a contract at some level to return. It's just whether somebody beats it. And then this is another example of, what is Bellinger looking for? Is it multiple years? Is it, a vesting option? Does he just want a lot of incentives? Does he believe that he can right this ship and a 1-year deal is all he wants? Like, it's going to be very interesting to see how Cody Bellinger wants to tackle this. And it'll say a little bit about, maybe where he feels as a player. If he takes the 3-year deal at lower AAV, that might tell you a little bit of how he feels about where he's at. He might feel pretty lost. If he thinks that he can figure this thing out, maybe he takes a 1-year deal and is ready to prove it and hit free agency next year. So I'm very interested to see what Bellinger wants. I think teams are going to be willing to bend a little bit and give him what he wants, because this is one of the most incredibly intriguing non-tendered guys we've really ever seen.
Ever. 2 years ago, Carlos Rodon was non-tendered by the White Sox. That was going into last year. And Rodon was an all-star. He was a Cy Young candidate, and he signs a 2-year, $44 million deal with San Francisco. If I'm not mistaken, he opts out. He hits the open market. He may very well sign an $100 million deal this offseason. So you can see how those things work in an interesting way. The White Sox obviously brought Rodon back, but Rodon did not have the suitors the way that Bellinger will have the suitors. And Spot Track, real quick, Spot Track. Top 5 trending players in Major League Baseball on Spot Track, which is the end-all be-all for contractual situations. If you want to know anything contractually across any sport, Spot Track is the place to go. SPOTRAC. Number 5, Jacob deGrom. Number 4, Mike Trout. Number 3, Ronald Acuna Jr. Number 2, Cody freaking Bellinger. Number 1, Aaron Judge. Kevin Kiermaier's market value, according to Spot Track, is $6.6 million. Brandon Nimmo is $21.2. Is Bellinger more valuable than Kevin Kiermaier?
Yes. I think at this stage, because I think Bellinger is going to give you better defense at this point. If you were getting, prime Kiermaier defense, I think it's probably Kevin Kiermaier, right? Because Kevin Kiermaier is, you look at the numbers, pretty much a guarantee to at least be within striking distance of a league average WRC plus. Bellinger, if he's not right, if it's the duplication of last year, he's again, like you said, one of the worst hitters in baseball. So it's how risk averse are you? If I'm just using them as an example because non-tendered players like the Marlins should be having a field day. If you're the Miami Marlins, I think you're more willing to roll the dice and go for the upside guy in Cody Bellinger, that even if he's 50% of his MVP self, he's probably the second best hitter on the team. But if you go to, the Dodgers, maybe they're like, the rest of our lineup is great. We just don't want a gaping hole. And if we feel like Kevin Kiermaier is going to replace the defense, that's another guy that they've checked in on or been interested in. I don't know what the exact buzzwords that were used for Kiermaier. They might just want to play it safe and say, we'll take the 90 WRC plus and, the great defense and just not have to worry about it as much with Bellinger. So I will say this though, Jack, what do you think the average on base percentage and slugging percentage was for a center fielder in Major League Baseball this year? And what's crazy is this is inflated by Aaron Judge a little bit, but I know it's not that much because it's a huge sample size here, but what do you think the average OPS was for a center fielder in Major League Baseball this past year?
Little under 700 flat. I'll say 692.
Yeah. 692. That was a great guess.
Okay.
So the point is center field is a glove first position. And even in a game where shortstops rake and, a lot of the positions where it's just really about guys who are just raking, center field is going to, I think, be able to withstand that as long as possible because of how valuable the defense is out there and all of these different stadiums. And with how much fly balls, how many fly balls we're seeing hit now too, it's just way more valuable. So Bellinger does not need to be close to offensive Cody Bellinger, MVP Cody Bellinger, to be a phenomenal pickup. So I'll ask you this. Do you give Cody Bellinger 2 years of $10 million each year? Are you willing to do that for the chance of him being even close to what he's once been capable of?
I've thought really long and hard about this. Like I spent a lot of time this weekend thinking about the kind of contract that Cody Bellinger could get. And I settled on, well, he's probably going to agree to 1 year, 9 and try it again next year. But if I was a team, to separate myself instead of, hey, what's the richest 1 year deal I can get, prove it deal I can get, I think a 2 year deal with a club option for a third makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the club option takes things out of his hands, so you need to up the ante a little bit. I settled on 2 years for 27.
You'd give him that much.
So that's 13.5 annually with a club option for 12 the third year.
You'd give him that much.
I would. I really would, because he is arguably the best defensive center fielder in he's not like Michael Harris is a better defensive center fielder. Straw is a better defensive center fielder, but Bellinger is a perennial Gold Glove candidate, and he will be. He's 27 years old. Like, he will be for the next 5 years. He's going to be one of the best.
He's not slowing down.
No, he's not. So the question is the bat. How much are you willing to pay Miles Straw? The answer is probably 8. Bellinger has this insane helium that Miles Straw could never even dream of having.
Yeah.
So I do think he can get 13 and a half AAV.
For what it's worth, Bellinger took a step in the right direction this season, which is really hard to believe. But you look at the 47 WRC plus. This year, 210, 265, 389/9, which isn't great. That's 83 WRC plus. But if you assume that he can build on that even just a little bit, right? He hit 19 home runs. He stole 14 bags on 17 tries. Like, if he can just find a way to even get on base a little bit better, right? He didn't walk at all. He used to walk more. I think he's cheating more. He's more aggressive. He's just trying to catch one out front. If he can find a way to maybe reinvent himself a little bit and just be more of a guy that's focused on getting on base and pounding mistakes, the other things that he does that he brings to the table, he could still be a very productive player. Shelter him from lefties a little bit too. All of a sudden you could squeeze out maybe a league average offensive season from this guy in center field. I think that's about right too. When you put it in perspective of some of the other deals that other guys are getting, it's pretty fair to say something in that range is worth it, given what you're guaranteed to get with the glove and, what you could possibly get with the bat. If he looked like 2021 Bellinger, I'd say no, but he did make some improvements with his whiff rates this year. Again, believe it or not, he did. Rock bottom was 2021, not 2022, which is quite hard to believe.
And it's very encouraging. Very, very encouraging that 2021 was rock bottom and not this past year when you get non-tendered.
Yes.
So he made what, $17 million after being the worst hitter in baseball in 2021?
That's what happens when you set the bar so high for yourself, right, going in right into arbitration.
Yeah, there we go. Shout out the heist. All right, moving on to the Giants. They non-tendered a bunch of guys. Samuel Delaplane, Harleen Garcia, Mauricio Llovera, Dom Nunez, Drew Strotman, Mabrice Viloria, Jason Vossler, Donnie Walton, Colton Welker, Alex Young. There's one name that jumps out here, and it is...
Wait, I wasn't as locked in for all of the names. What was it?
There were a lot. You want me to go through rapid fire again?
Yes.
And you
see who you're talking about. That. Yeah, that's notable.
Samuel Delaplane, Harleen Garcia, Mauricio Llovera, Dom Nunez, Drew Strotman, Mabrice Viloria, Jason Vossler, Donnie Walton, Colton Welker, Alex Young.
So here's the thing. The most notable name, technically speaking, is going to be Harleen Garcia, I think. But
there's another guy that's better.
Colton Welker.
Yes.
So Harleen Garcia, before we get to Colton Welker, because this is just being prospect heads, if we think Colton Welker is the most notable player here. Harleen Garcia had a 2.62 as a lefty out of the pen for the Giants in 2021. He had a .68 whip. And that was following up a ridiculous 2020 campaign where in 18 innings, small sample size, he gave up like one run. So this guy, I was surprised to see him non-tendered. He is going to have a lot of teams looking to pick him up as a lefty out of their pen. He wasn't even that bad last year. I'm very surprised that this was the move they made.
Yeah.
Welker, I'm a big fan of. Injuries have beat him up a little bit since he was a 4th round pick by the Rockies. He's raked through the minor leagues, and that's somebody that could be a good buy low opportunity as well. One of the most impressive hitters I ever saw growing up as well. Played some travel tournaments with him. He has made hitting look easy really since the get-go and was continuing to do it through the minor leagues. It's just, where's he going to play defensively and how much power can he hit for? And I think, if he goes to the right team, he can show that.
Yeah. Guardians, Anthony Gose was non-tendered. Luke Maile was non-tendered. So obviously the Bo Naylor era is here. If Maile is non-tendered, you've got Hedges in free agency as well, but I think they do believe that Naylor is the guy. If not, it's probably via the trade market that they go and grab their catcher. Maile is not the backup anymore. Anthony Gose is an outfielder that can hop on the bump and throw 100 from the left side.
Yeah. I mean, he throws fuzz. Fastball, he has no idea where it's going, but it averages 97, 98 miles an hour. My concern is if the Guardians couldn't teach this guy how to pitch out of the pen, who's going to teach him how to pitch? Maybe the Astros. Maybe the Dodgers.
Maybe.
That's it.
That's literally it. So we'll see. Mariners, Luke Weaver, Luis Torrens, and Brian O'Keefe. Torrens, I think, is a major league backup catcher. I do.
Yeah, and he can play some other spots, which is kind of the interesting part too, is he's an athletic guy. He even played 2 games at second base last year. So if he's able to play multiple positions and rove around a little bit, backup catcher that, in an emergency you can slide somewhere else, the guy had a decent year in 2021. He's going to get an opportunity somewhere else.
Yeah, he was really bad in 2022.
He's just not that good of a catcher. That's the problem.
Yeah. 2021, 108 games at a 730 OPS. 2022, 55 games at a 580 OPS. So not great. Marlins, Brian Anderson and Nick Neidert. Neidert, generic right-handed arm. Anderson is a guy that you have ridden the experience, and you sent a text. He's probably going to be a San Francisco Giant and have a 3.2 F4 next year.
Correct. Dude, this guy can play baseball. I'm just going to be honest. He can play baseball. Is he great? No, but he's a solid baseball player. You look at his career stats. He's got a 107 WRC plus over his 531 career games. He hits the ball hard. He's never been able to consistently tap into power, but we had a string here from 2018 to 2020 where he went 113 WRC plus, 114 WRC plus, 120 WRC plus. 2.9 F4, 2.7 F4, 1.7 F4. when he's on the field, he's an above average big league player. And if that's a platoon guy that you can move, he plays phenomenal defense at third. He's been good in the outfield, struggled last year, has one of the best arms in the big leagues though out of right field, and is a above average hitter for his career. There's a lot of teams that I think he could serve a really good platoon role for. And if you had to plug him in as a regular because someone went down, he would be fine. You would not be, it wouldn't be a devastating drop off. You're seeing teams trade for Gio Urshela. Yeah. I don't think Brian Anderson is that far off from the value that he can provide if he's healthy.
No, he's not. The Mets non-tender Sean Reed Foley and Dom Smith. Dom Smith, 58 games this past year, slashed 194, 276, 284. On his career, he's a 733 OPS guy, across 162 on average, 17 homers. That number's got to be higher. Like, what is he moving forward?
I don't know. Because the hardest part is he's a reverse splits guy. Yeah. So that makes it difficult too. Like, it's not like, okay, shell turn from lefties, he's going to bash righties and, we'll be in good shape. You look at his best season was in 2020 where he went nuclear. Yeah, absolutely nuclear. And that quite honestly, fuck the 2020 season because it's created so many, it's created so much confusion for like a prolonged amount of time. I mean, you look at what Kyle Lewis did in that 2020 season, he was good for 30 games.
Okay. But hey, how about 2019 for Dom Smith? 89 games, had an 881 OPS.
So, and again, it was like 89 games. So you combine the 89 with the 50, you got a full season there, roughly.
And he was great.
Still,
yeah.
It's still only not even 400 plate appearances. So look, he's a good bench bat. I still think he is. I think he was frustrated with the limited playing time in New York at the end there. It's just he doesn't give you anything defensively either. There's a reason why no teams traded for him. They wanted to trade him for a while. Teams were more interested in JD Davis than Dominic Smith because at least that guy, what his role is. He's going to mash lefties and stick him at third or first or DH. Dom Smith, it's first or DH, and he doesn't have a preference. So if anything, his preference is left on left. It makes no sense. Yeah. He's going to land somewhere, but he doesn't really have a good contingency plan. That's the issue.
Damn. It's sad. He was such a good prospect.
Yep.
All right. The Nats, non-tender 3 guys. Eric Fetty, finally. Oh, God. That was
the Marlins are actually so pumped about that one. Holy crap. That guy carved them. Never seen anything like it. Young. That was Peter made so many units off that.
Tommy Romero, also non-tendered by the Nats, and Luke Voit was non-tendered by the Nats. Voit, I actually think, is a more valuable piece than Dominic Smith because Voit, if you give him everyday reps, he could actually be a 30 homer guy next year. I wouldn't bat an eye if Voit turned out to be a 25, 30 homer guy. Obviously low batting average, but who cares?
I mean, dude, he was all right last year. He could have been worse, right? I mean, 22 homers and after being the start that he had was so disastrous and then getting sent to basically Siberia in the Washington Nationals, it was not a great situation for him. He hit 22 home runs, which ironically matches his 56 game total in the damn COVID season. But you look at the numbers before that COVID season, really good as well. This guy's 123 WRC plus in his career. He hits too many homers to not be a platoon option for somebody. He could add power to a lot of different lineups that desperately need it. He was playing every day for the Nationals and was one of the only guys that actually was a threat. If he's not that on another team, I think he could be a really solid masher that you almost forget about, is waiting for you in the back of the order and can punch you in the mouth when you're, when you drop your hands a little bit as a team or as a pitching staff. Tommy Romero is a guy that I'm not willing to give up on either. This is somebody that's bounced around a little bit. It came up with the Rays, doesn't throw hard. Another guy that's funny. A lot of these non-tender guys are South Florida guys that I faced in high school, but Tommy Romero was the guy that we faced in our district a lot. And, has this invisible that he's always had. And he went to JUCO after that, and it was low 90s invisible. And he climbed through the Rays system with this low 90s fastball that, similar to Nestor Cortez, just has that invisible takeoff that so many pitchers covet, that riding action. The problem is Romero has not been able to find the secondaries to go with it. If he can even find average secondaries to go with it, he could be an interesting pitcher. I wonder if the right team, can help him develop a changeup, develop a breaking ball. I guarantee he's going to be an option for a lot of teams. Look at his numbers through the minor leagues at certain points over the last couple of years. He has dominated through stretches.
Yeah, and promise you it won't be the Nats that help him figure it out.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. Orioles non-tender, nobody. Padres non-tender, 2. Efrain Contreras, minor league right-hander, fine. Jorge Alfaro.
I'm shocked. Can't believe it. I was told he was great.
Is he a big league center fielder? What's the deal?
The Marlins might bring him back to me. I think Alfaro is as athletic as they come, as a catcher. He's got some thump. He was clutch this year. He's one of those guys that is just too talented. He's always going to get a what if chance until he's 34. And then it's like, okay, well, what are we saying what if for at this point?
Yeah. It's going to turn into the Avi Garcia. Speaking of the Marlins, it's going to turn into the Avi Garcia conversation where everybody's holding out hope for Avi Garcia. And then it just never happens.
Yep. I don't think he's going to make $56 million in the process, but he's too talented, right? This guy's been a top 100 prospect, or he was a top 100 prospect for years on end, was traded from multiple organizations while still being a top 100 prospect, which should have been a little bit of a tell. When a top 100 prospect gets passed around, a la Jeter Downs as well, a la Taylor Trammell, right? Those kind of guys that get passed around and they continue to be top 100 prospects might be a little bit of a clue that once you get up closer with them, you find some of those deficiencies and those holes. That's exactly what was the case with Alfaro, as he got traded for multiple organizations before really debuting. But again, he's going to be a guy that until he's 34, people are still going to be like, let's give this guy a shot and see what he can do.
Right. Phillies, none. Pirates, none. Rangers, righty Nick Snyder. Anything? I don't know anything about Nick Snyder.
You could have made that name up.
Yeah. Generic right-handed arm. Ryan Yarbrough with Tampa. Really interesting. Yarbrough is outdated, I think. I actually think Ryan Yarbrough is extinct from baseball. I understand that there was a ton of soft contact generated by Yarbrough, but you can't feel good if you're Kevin Cash sending Ryan Yarbrough out to the hill in a Major League Baseball game. Very similar to, and I love this guy, Kyle Hendricks. I loved him for so long because he was perfect every time he stepped on the hill. But if you are not perfect with your command and you have that little stuff, you have that little chance or room for error, you are screwed. And Kyle Hendricks has gotten blasted with the Cubs. That contract looks terrible. Ryan Yarbrough, the Rays got out clean because they know, I think, that he's running out of those perfect outings. If this guy is not perfect, it's terrible.
Yeah, what's interesting is I see him as that perfect candidate to sign with, let's say, a Washington Nationals. And they have to literally fill up bodies in their rotation. And now you pick up a 30-year-old Yarbrough. If he has a sneaky decent season at the deadline, you flip him for some prospects. He goes and pitches for a contender, right? I think that's going to be what we see. I think that's more likely than signs with a decent team and is a swing man. I think he's going to want that opportunity to pitch, and a crappy team could scoop him up, because the reality is, there's still a market for a 4 or 5 ERA guy that eats innings. And I know he only threw 80 innings this year because he was in that swingman role. But the year prior, he was a 5.11 ERA guy in 155 innings. I think he could be a mid-4s guy and throw 150 innings, and some team picks him up at the deadline to eat innings.
That's called being a Washington National.
Yeah, correct.
Congratulations, Ryan Yarbrough. You are a Washington National.
Welcome to Siberia.
Red Sox non-tender 2, Franchi Cordero and Yu Chang. Neither of these guys are Major League Baseball players anymore. Don't
ask our guy Colby Olson about Franchi Cordero.
Nope, they are veteran AAA pieces, Franchi Cordero and Yu Chang.
Cordero's cut from the same too toolsy and talented to not offer him a minor league contract cloth. He hits the living crap out of the ball, but he also he seems like he'd be a good defender because he's toolsy, but he's not. He'll get a chance because he hits the ball so hard, but he whiffs way too much and has major defensive deficiencies. So
same deal with Aristides Aquino, and the Reds non-tender a bunch of them. Aquino, Alan Cerda, who I want to spend some time on, Kyle Dowdy, Daniel Duarte, Jeff Hoffman, Derek Law, Jared Solomon, Art Warren. The two names that really jump out here are Cerda and Aristides Aquino. Aquino, we know the book on him. 50% K rate, but when he hits it, the Punisher. And he's got like the strongest arm, and he's also kind of fast. So I would like, so yeah, I would hate it if Aristides Aquino ended up on my favorite team, but I would also go to the ballpark and I'd say, hey, Aquino's in the lineup. That's kind of fun. We might see something crazy. No?
I mean, and here's the thing, though. He's like the best defender. Like, he's the best corner outfield defender in baseball, right? I mean, if you look at the metrics in right field, if he played enough games, I think he's a shoo-in for the Gold Glove. He was, didn't he lead in outs above average or defensive run saved? I think he led 16 defensive runs saved in 560 innings. If I just made up a stat that was defensive runs saved per inning, I guarantee no one's sniffing that, with a minimum 100 innings played. Like, this guy
per 36, per 9 innings.
Yeah, there's no way. The problem is he actually can't hit the side of a barn. And I mean, he's getting carved up in the Dominican Winter League right now. I think he's hitting $130 out there. With the defense, he's going to get a shot, but I mean, yeah, this guy's really brutal offensively.
Yeah. Okay. Another guy that was really brutal in 2022, but I'm holding out hope for is Alan Cerda. And Cerda was so bad that he got demoted, and he still wasn't very good. 62 games in double as a 22-year-old, slashed 198, 350, 401. So he was walking. He just wasn't, getting hits. He goes to Dayton. He repeats high A. He spent 21 games in Dayton in 2021. He was really good there. But in 2022, 62 games in Dayton, slashes 219, 370, 488. He gets on base. He still had an 803 OPS this year in 124 games, had an 884 OPS in 87 games in 2021. Again, he is 22 years old. He turns 23 on Thanksgiving. He is absolutely worth a 40-man spot for a lot of teams.
A lot of teams. If you are, really looking for bats in your system, he's worth a shot. I mean, it's really amazing. I was shocked that they didn't send him a contract. I think if they didn't replenish the system the way they have the Reds over the last year and a half, Cerda's a no-brainer to keep. Now they have so many guys through the system that rake that, they had the decision to make. This guy's 6'3", 200+ pounds, like you said. Hits the crap out of the ball. Like, he's got crazy power potential. And you look at what he could do with the glove also in the corner. I think he could be an above average defender out there. He walks a decent amount. He's going to be a popular prospect target that was not tendered here. And I'm still holding out hope that he could be a 30 home run guy, low batting average, give you some good defense in a corner. And, it's valuable in today's game.
Me too. Hey, you know how much I like Cerda. Big fan. Rockies non-tender Garrett Hampson, utility guy. They've got enough of those, and with who's coming up, they were fine. Royals,
especially with Judge probably coming to Colorado. They don't
Judge and Nimmo and trading for Ohtani. It's tough.
They don't need him.
Yeah. No, they're good. Royals non-tender Jake Brentz and Nate Webb. Brentz lefty. Fine. Nate Webb, don't know much about him. This officially marked the end of the Al Avila era in Detroit. All the Avila guys were non-tendered. Jeimer Candelario was non-tendered. Davis. Candelario is another one that we're going to get to here in a moment. But Candelario, Brendan Davis, not Brendan Davis, Brendan Davis, an infielder. Harold Castro, Willie Castro, Michael Papierski, who I kind of like, Miguel Diaz, and Kyle Funkhauser, all non-tendered. Jeimer Candelario is obviously the headliner here. He's probably the second best non-tendered guy on this list after Bellinger, right?
He very well might be. This was one of the not surprising, because I think they, like you said, they wanted to kind of clean house and start fresh. But Candelario is, over the last 2 years, meaning 2020 and 2021, he was really good, man. He was a really good offensive player. And last year was bad, but it wasn't some unfathomably terrible disaster of a season, right? He was on the same team of everybody else struggling around him. And that shit is contagious, man. And it really is, especially when you're playing in Comerica, where it is just where offense goes to die. You look at his splits too, home road, he was much better away from there as well, which makes sense given that it is really awful to hit there. 94 WRC plus away, 64 WRC plus at home. Neither are great, albeit, but it is worth noting that in this horrible year, he did slug 90 points higher on the road. So, I really do think he's going to bounce back. And I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are willing to, test the waters and see if he can bounce back. There's a lot of teams that could use a third baseman in today's game. There's really no in between. It's either elite or, fill in. And there's a lot of teams that are the latter. And at 28 years old, going to be 29 in a few days, Candelario can help a lot of teams.
Yeah, I do think so. Another guy that jumps out here, I don't need to spend time on the Castros. I do like Michael Papirski a good bit. Papirski was a guy that played 39 games between San Fran and Cincinnati. 5 with San Fran, 34 with Cincinnati. The numbers were not good. /143, 228, 187. But this is a big guy behind the plate. He is a switch hitting catcher. He provides a little bit of value. I do think he is the third catcher in an organization. He is in AAA, waiting to get the bump up if an injury does occur. So I don't mind him. Funkhauser was a guy that was really fun at Louisville, and I was just kind of shocked that he didn't really put it together, but that kind of feels like the Tiger thing, right? They always grab pitchers that just never really seem to put it together out of college. Yeah. I mean, Funkhauser falls in the same bucket as Alex Faedo, falls in the same bucket as Casey Mize at the moment. The only guy to kind of break that trend recently is Tarek Skubal, and even then, Skubal's hurt. What are we going to get from Skubal post-injury?
Yeah, and Funkhauser's hurt as well. I don't think he pitched all of last year. He's dealing with a shoulder issue. That might say a little bit more about how the Tigers feel about his arm issue.
There's something about the Tigers and like durability with these guys. Yeah. I mean, what's going on?
I can speak to one thing, and I'll say it a little bit more now since there's been a changing of the guard. But just speaking to some players within that org through the years and more recently even. It seems to be one of those where it was, under Alavila, a very hands-off organization, not much invested into player development and not much really paying attention to their guys, especially if they weren't one of their main guys. And when you do that, you leave yourself exposed to players getting, slipping through the cracks or not really maintaining themselves or getting to the best of their ability, like a lot of other guys. And I can tell you that the player development that we saw in terms of success on the field, behind the scenes, it would kind of check out, they were not doing things the right way there. And I think, under Harris, they're going to start doing that a lot better now.
Yeah. All right. Last 3 guys that got non-tendered were all by the White Sox. Adam Engel, Mark Payton, Denny Mendick. Mark Payton, shout out St. Rita. This was a guy that bounced around for a while, found his way back home to the south side of Chicago, but was not good enough to command a 40-man spot. Danny Mendick, he's not going to give you anything Lenyn Sosa isn't next year. So I think they probably viewed him as that kind of same thing as Yolbert Sanchez going unprotected in the Rule 5. These guys are just not going to give you anything that Sosa isn't going to. And they need to be a lot better than Danny Mendick playing 100 games for the White Sox next year. And then Adam Engel is a guy that I think is going to get picked up by a major league team because when he's on the field, he's one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball. He just can't really hit.
Yeah, 4th outfielder type.
Yeah, I think so.
There's always a market for those guys. And you look at what he did last year. He played a little bit of center field where he was 2 outs above average, a little bit of left field where he was fine. I think he was 0 outs above average. He only played 7 innings there. And then in right field, he was an out above average. So limited playing time and was above average at, every spot in the outfield. He swiped 12 bags. He could do a little bit of everything. I think this is somebody that fits the perfect 4th outfielder profile, which is usually the non-tender guys that we see, but we got a little bit more upside than the typical with some of the other dudes.
100%. All right. That's Aram. I think right before we hit record, I said, oh yeah, this is going to be about 40 minutes. And we ended up going about an hour. So
yeah, it makes sense.
Congrats to us on that. Great. All right. Peter and I will talk to you tomorrow.
We'll see what happens the rest of the week. I'm sure we'll do something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll do something. So we'll see. All right, guys, we'll talk to you.